Yeah.
Every couple I've ever seen, for the most part, statistically, not everyone, but a large percentage, either gets in better shape together or gets out of shape together.
Sure. Let the fear of losing yourself in the relationship outweigh the fear of being alone, because loneliness will not kill you. Losing yourself can. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals from all over the world, welcome back to the one and only, the only Conscious Couples podcast. Today we have episode number 38. I had to look at my notes, my cheat sheet over here. How to not lose yourself in your relationship. So many people get into a relationship and who they are changes so rapidly. It starts off small and it builds, and we've all had those friends or family members who got into a relationship and they all of a sudden became a little bit more distant, a little bit less of who they used to be. Now, that can be a good thing if they're changing for the better and evolving and growing, but it's not always a good thing. So before we jump into this episode, a huge shout out to Next Level Podcast Solutions. And as always, love, what's your intention?
So I'm glad you just mentioned that word, evolve, because I really do when I am bringing this energy into this episode, I want to start with this belief that I really believe it's in all of our benefit to evolve where we started from. And sometimes we change in a way that is not true to who we are and who we really, really are at the core. And so my intention is to acknowledge that fact and to help others realize that if you're not evolving in the journey or in the trajectory that really does feel true to you, then that's something to inquire about. And so my intention is to help empower our listeners when you might be either in that state or you can reprocess an experience in that state so that you can become a better version of yourself after that, based on our episode. What's your story?
So essentially, I don't use this analogy that often anymore because I found out apparently it's not true. Apparently a frog, if you put it in a pot of boiling water and then slowly bring it to a boil, they won't actually cook to death. Apparently they will jump out. But if you've ever heard that analogy, right?
I don't like frogs,
I know. So if you've ever heard that analogy of putting a frog in a pot of boiling water, if the water's already boiling, the frog will jump right out and save itself.
Yes.
If you slowly bring it to a boil, it'll get cooked to death. That's the analogy here of like, sometimes this can be so slow and so seamless and so seemingly insignificant that you don't really notice it's happening. It's hard to see the whole picture when you're in the frame. And so I'm going to tell a story of a friend of mine. So a friend of mine got in a relationship that seemed really wonderful at the beginning. And they went on a couple dates, started working. They started to envision what their life could be together. This person actually had a really big falling out with their family. So they ended up moving in with each other really quickly because of COVID.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of COVID, it was kind of like we're either never going to see each other or we have to move in together. And so it took the way the law of attraction should work, which is slow and incremental, and just kind of threw it in a pressure cooker of like, you have ultimatum.
Jump in this boiling water.
You either live with each other after a month or two, or you don't see each other for a month or two.
Right.
That kind of thing. Because at the beginning of the pandemic, things were crazy.
Yeah.
So during uncertain times, people make these decisions. So anyways, they end up living together a little earlier than they should have in hindsight.
Yeah.
And this person slowly started to stop doing what they used to do. They slowly started to stop valuing what they used to value. They slowly started to change who and what they are. And they started really just putting on this show of, deep down, I could tell this person was not really loved or fulfilled. And the only reason I can really tell that at this stage is just because when you coach so many people all over the world for so long, I'm coming up on 4.5 years now of coaching, and you just start to see these patterns. I can see fulfillment in people's energies now, because that's the main focal point of mine, is like, how can we be more fulfilled, maximize your potential, all that. And so I could tell this person's not nearly as fulfilled as she once was, but she's telling herself a story. She's more fulfilled, more in love, X, Y, Z. And so the top layer here that I wanted to talk about is that it's a slow progression, and we use the analogy of clay being molded slowly. So if you've ever seen a person who got into a relationship and all of a sudden the other partner started to slowly mold them into who they want them to be, instead of what I'm trying to do with Emilia, honestly, which is help her mold herself into who she aspires to be. See the difference there? One of them is, I'm going to slowly manipulate and try to get her to see herself and me and our relationship in a certain way. The other version is like, okay, who do you aspire to be? And how can I help enhance that? How can I help add to that? How can I pour fuel on that flame? That flame that's in your heart, what sets your soul on fire. And so we all know the opposite. We've all seen the difference between those two. And that's what today's episode is about, which is, how do you not lose yourself when you're actually in an intimate relationship? And it's not, those are two extremes that I just described. One is very, very aspirational, help them maximize their potential regardless of self. That's one extreme that I think is a really positive. And then the other extreme is, how do you slowly manipulate them into being less and less and less and more and more and more of what you want? And that's a very narcissistic, manipulative quality, when in reality that person deep, deep, deep down is just deeply insecure and afraid to lose love as well.
Exactly.
And so how do you not lose yourself in your relationship? Everything in between those two extremes. Go.
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes to that is that you probably get into a relationship not necessarily thinking, especially if you're in that relationship, thinking that this person does not have your best intentions at heart. You want to think that, you want to believe that. And so to this friend, that was this friend's belief as well, and the analogy of the sculptor, of someone who really is, being sculpted, it's slow. Like if you've ever actually sculpted clay, the wheel's turning very slow, because every sort of adjustment while the clay is on the spinner, it can, depending upon the speed, it can change the entire shape, the entire mold of the clay. And what happens in relationships is the speed at which you're developing and which you're assimilating, because that's really what happens when you get in an intimate relationship. Both people struggle with the need for belonging. They get in and they're assimilating to one another. And so all insecurities, all challenges, all belief systems, all values are literally being put into that pressure cooker, especially if you move in right away and you're making all these decisions. The brain is optimized and the heart, the body is optimized to try to smooth things out and not confront any sort of challenges that might arise at the very get. And so to that extent, this friend actually had the wheel not turning slowly. It was turning really fast. So every single decision morphed who she was so quickly. And the biggest challenge about that is, because of this love factor, because she was very much in the infatuation phase, she ended up gaslighting herself. She ended up forcing herself into the belief that she was really happy. And, I remember having a conversation with her after she was outside of this relationship. And I remember saying to her, I knew this was going to happen, because I remember I had a conversation with her at that time that says, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. This is what's going to happen as a result of that. And I'm just afraid that I see this going a different way than you might think. And at the time, she ignored that. And after she was out of that relationship, she had shared with me, she said, you could have said that, and you did say that, but I didn't want to hear it. If anything, I would have villainized you, and I did. I villainized you. You became the problem. So what we ended up doing in those relationships, when the wheel is spinning so fast and we're molding who we are, we're maybe not going to the gym when we really value the gym prior to the relationship. We end up villainizing the person that wants to give us guidance. We ignore the red flags that are coming up for us. And I know everyone listening to this has probably either experienced this in themselves, or they have someone where they've seen that and they've maybe tried to kind of give them a little nudge of do you really love going to bars and getting drunk? When prior to this relationship, you hadn't stepped, you were really on the sober train and really proud of that? Do you really? Like, is that really who you are?
Here's the slippery slope, because what if they really did change? Do you want to give them that wiggle room to be able to evolve and to change?
Right.
And here's the other thing too. Every single action we take is a vote for the type of person we are. So what happens is, let's say Emilia, for whatever reason, wanted to go to the bar. I don't ever go to bars, but I love Emilia. Maybe I want to go with her. And this isn't true, but let's say hypothetically.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden I've been at a bar, photos were taken, I'm at bars. Now all of a sudden I start advocating for those behaviors.
Yep.
It starts to leak into what I believe is acceptable. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, it can be anything. It can be skim milk versus whole milk. It can be a fit person versus a not fit person. I used to be really bashful about this, love. I'm not anymore, because I don't think it helps people. I just want to bring some really hard truths to everyone.
Yeah.
Every couple I've ever seen, for the most part, statistically, not everyone, but a large percentage, either gets in better shape together or gets out of shape together.
True.
And so everyone think about different couples that are around. You can all think of a couple who got together and all of a sudden they started to slowly get out of shape together.
They slowly loosen their standards.
Loosen their standards.
Everything else.
Loosen their standards. Loosen their standards. Loosen the standards. Tighter belt. I'm joking. But seriously, at the end of the day,
on the neck.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, we're Mike and Jesse, and we just wanted to give a quick shout out to Alan and Emilia from the Conscious Couples podcast.
Mike and I have been listeners of the show for a little while, and we decided we wanted to take it one step further and try out couples coaching. In the beginning, we were a little hesitant because we didn't really know how we would be supported through this journey. But Emilia and Alan quickly blew us away during our free 30-minute call, where they were able to listen to us, hear our needs, hear our goals, and to just drive to 5 and find common ground. And we are so excited to jump in every single month with them to continue on our journey. So thank you guys so much. All the love. If you haven't tuned in, 10 out of 10 recommend.
But at the end of the day, that's what it is that you're integrating standards, you're integrating identities, you're integrating belief systems, you're integrating actions and habits. And so how do you not lose your old self in your relationship? You have to, hopefully, this is the way I think it should work. Two people meet each other and they take the best of their old selves and put those into the relationship.
Yeah.
And hopefully they grow together and they can take each other's genius zones and each other's strengths and bring those into the we and into the me's in the relationship. And then hopefully they can help each other mitigate their weaknesses. That's what I try to do with my business partner, Kevin. That's what I try to do with you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with every client.
Everyone. Yeah.
You know, it's like, how do I not take my weaknesses and put them on you?
Yep.
How do I take my strengths and help you come up in those and then learn from you and your strengths? And I think that's how the ships rise together. You know, one tide rises all ships type of thing. And the problem is that if you're in a harbor that the tide is going down, not up, because this other person is trying to slowly get you to be what they think you should be. And the very last piece I'll say here is a lack of humility. I've come to this new understanding. If Emilia thinks that I should be the way she thinks I should be, how arrogant is that?
Yeah.
And so anytime that you're in a relationship with someone where they have very strong opinions about how you should be, you've got to be very careful about that. There's a difference between, hey, this is what I'm noticing and this is what I believe would probably be best for you, but by the way, this is your life and your choice.
Your choice.
On my coaching calls, I say that all the time. Like, this is my perspective, but you have to choose for you. No one can really know for you what's best for you. I can just tell you what I'm seeing from outside the frame because you're in the frame and you're clearly not seeing the whole picture. Yeah. So with this data, what you do with it is your own, and I will respect that. Go ahead, love.
To that extent, that I think that just slightly triggered me because I know how many relationships are happening around the world where they're experiencing the suppression of that. And to the frog in a boiling pot of water, they don't even realize that there's these manipulative tactics as a result of insecurities in their relationship where one partner literally cannot give that. You're not insecure. And so of course you can give the opportunity, the choice. That's how you operate. But people who are really insecure don't even know how to say, but this is your choice. And it's so important to me because of my integrity that you make your own choice on your accord. And there's some people that are so good at actually saying that, but in their energy,
but they'll pretend that
are pretending otherwise. And so that communication, those manipulative tactics end up the person in the relationship believes that this person has their best intentions because they're really saying that, you know, you choose for you, I really support you. But their actions, if you were to do something different, don't actually show that. If you weren't to go on that track that they suggested, how would they respond? Yeah. Right? If you weren't to take or heed their advice or their guidance or their perspective, how would they react? The relationship? Exactly. Yeah. Would your relationship grow or would you grow apart? Would you grow together or would you grow apart? And that's what I see so much in so many relationships. And ultimately the fear that's at the very depth of all of this, like losing ourselves, is the fear of being alone. Because, and this is what happened with our friend, the fear of being alone was so much bigger than the fear of losing yourself.
And the fear of the facade that was being put up of this relationship is amazing, and her telling herself that story, this relationship is amazing, and then them trying to show that the relationship is amazing. Losing that identity, losing that status, losing the relationship that everyone thought was wonderful. Yeah. And was portrayed as wonderful actually wasn't. Yeah. And that can be really hard because the very success and story we tell ourselves can trap us if we're not careful. And that's why I think true humility is an indicator of how close someone's words and actions are. Mm. And I think that humility, I think, is the solution here. Mm. Humility to say, you know what, maybe my relationship is jeffed. Humility to say, you know what, maybe my partner isn't as great as I thought. Or the humility to say, am I manipulative on any level? Like, am I doing this on I've done that in our relationship. I'm like, wait a minute, was that manipulative at all? Like, do I need to
you and I have caught ourselves more than I've ever heard other couples catch themselves.
And it was minor things, but I'll never forget it. I remember Emilia wanted to buy a couch, and she wanted to consult with her mom about it. Oh, my goodness. Sorry. And she wanted to consult with her mom about it because her mom does interior design all the time, and she's awesome at that. Mm-hmm. And I said something ridiculous, which was like, oh, just buy the thing, or something. You don't need to consult. I threw a stinger. I remember that. Yeah, you don't need to. And it's like, wait a minute, if she wants to consult with her mother, she does that. Like, what is that about, right? Yeah. And so that's as far as I'll ever let that get from my perspective. But I also know what it's like to be in the other end of that. Yeah. And so I don't want to ever be that. And so if you're out there watching or listening to this, are you yourself, your true, authentic, fulfilled, bright self in your relationship? And by the way, if you're questioning that a lot, you're probably suppressed on some level.
1,000%.
And this isn't a 0 or a 1. This isn't like 100% suppressed or not suppressed at all. Yeah, it's what's the extent that you can be your own bright, unique light in this relationship. Yeah. And what part of you, because that's the one cool thing about being single, is there's just no one to like get in your energy, so you just get to be your weird, awesome self. Yes. And I hope that you can be that way with me. Mm-hmm. It's the best.
For sure. I think to close this episode, what I wish I heard, whether it was when I was younger or when I was in a spot where I knew that I was losing myself in a relationship, was let the fear of losing yourself in the relationship outweigh the fear of being alone. Because loneliness will not kill you. Losing yourself can.
Strong work.
Thanks, love.
Strong work. That was very well said.
Thank you.
Let the fear of losing yourself be greater than the fear of being alone. Yeah. And you might not be alone.
You definitely won't. People are attracted to natural, organic, abundant energy. 100%. And when you can be yourself, people will be attracted to that.
And then the law of attraction will work the way it's supposed to work. Yes. And you can stop getting hoodwinked. I'm joking. All right. We got to jump here.
All right. So we want to tell all the things. We have all the things for our listeners.
Always. All right. So we have an RT event, Relationship Talks event. We do them every single month. November 10th. Be there or be square. Woo. Mm-hmm. Oh, or
circle around.
That's it. That's the whole plug. Okay. No, I'm kidding. It's putting your relationship first during the holidays, which can feel really difficult. Oh, yeah. Especially when you're being molded into something. No, I'm joking. But yeah, come join us. You can keep your mics off, cameras off, and not participate if you don't want to, or you can engage literally in the chat. We have a chat master there. We've got a virtual event coordinator there. It's a really well done event. We've got we've got a lot going on over here in the studio too.
Yeah.
It's very interactive. We've got multiple laptops, multiple
Whole
screens, big camera. We got microphones now, lapel mics.
It's legit, y'all.
The production value is legit.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, we're not on CNN yet, but I'm joking.
There's humor, there's love. We get into it. Like it's awesome. We have the full spectrum here too. And if, say for example, you want to get a little bit deeper into some of this stuff. Say for example, you struggle or I don't know, maybe this is something that you want to talk about deeper. I have a friend who, I know he's been struggling in the relationship arena, and I know there was a big fear around maybe jumping on the mic or jumping on a Zoom, completely free, private, virtual with Alan and I, because at the front, it can be intimidating. But I'm so proud of him because he finally, was able to say, you know what, this is something that I could really benefit from. And at the end of the day, I don't have anything to lose. I only have everything to gain. And I'm so proud of him. He's booked on our calendar. His life is going to absolutely change, if not just his thought process, if not just him not feeling alone. And I think that can be so powerful. So I'm so proud of him. And what I want to say to all of our listeners, if you might feel alone or you might feel like you're struggling in something like this and you want to talk to someone who, really we've been there before and we see you and we support you. You're not alone. Alan and I, every single Saturday, we make sure on our calendars that we have 30 minutes allocated to meet our listeners and to help our community, because we know that would have been so valuable for us when we were in our darkest moments. So we're here for you. The link will be in the show notes, and we cannot wait to meet you.
I saw that come through last night on my calendar. November 19th to the listener you're talking about. Can't wait to see you, brother. Okay, last thing. So we have a conscious couples WhatsApp community and a conscious singles, if you're single, WhatsApp community. Mm-hmm. Every time you join the RT event, you get invited into that private WhatsApp group. I think we have 58 people in there now. Yeah. So conscious couples all over the world trying to have the best relationships they can possibly have. And if they're single, trying to attract their dream partners.
So
what could be better?
I know.
That's all I'm saying. All right, it's not about me. It is. I'm joking. It's not about me or you. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is a Lazaros 88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.